Well, welcome back here to Full Circle Florida, everyone. ABC News Political Director Rick Klein joining us right now. And Rick, new poll numbers just released from 538 on the presidential election. What does it reveal?
It's a close race, and it's going to be. I mean, their polling average, I think, shows that it's basically tied in the national head-to-head matchup. And in the key battleground states, we're seeing a slight Trump edge in most of the big states, with one or two exceptions. It's Trump, but it's such a narrow edge in the battlegrounds that this is almost certainly going to be close down to the wire. And, you know, we talk about polling. I get asked about polling all the time. I think the overriding thing to know is that it's going to be a very close race, and it's hard to imagine there's going to be much that's going to change that between now and November.
Yeah, so many factors at play, including these protests. Do we know yet how these student protests all over the country protesting against Israel and their involvement in what's happening in Gaza? It seems like a catch-22 for the Biden administration. They have to support Israel, but it seems to be a growing sentiment against Israel's actions in Gaza, particularly among the voters that Biden needs most, young people.
Yeah, and that's just it. I think particularly Democratic young people. It's been Democrats who are a lot more divided on Israel than Republicans or independents. And young voters are, of course, they're the people on the college campuses that are marking these protests right now. Clearly, something has changed in American public opinion on Israel, and I think particularly around younger voters and around core Democrats. And that does put the Biden administration in a tougher spot, which is why we saw Speaker Johnson head to the campus of Columbia University to try to call on Biden to call out the National Guard. Biden says he's got no tolerance for anti-Semitic protesters or anyone that uses violence, but he does support the idea of peacefully protesting and expressing a point of view. And he's been more and more sympathetic to the point of view of Palestinians, stopping short, of course, in any sympathy for the terrorists of Hamas. But he has moderated and changed his position a bit to say that what Israel has done in some cases has been over the top, and that there needs to be some reconsideration of their policies.
And Rick, have you heard any concerns, just looking a little bit down the road here to Chicago and the Democratic National Convention? You know, we know the scene that happened back in 1968. Have they thought about what could potentially happen this summer there? Yeah,
they sure have, and they know about 1968 better than anyone. And the fact that we all think about as Chicago 68 as shorthand for political violence is some signature or some reminder of how fraught it may be. We've got the wars that are raging. We've got discontent over national political life in so many different ways. And then you have Chicago in a hot summer in August, and you have the recipe there for massive disruption. They've been talking about some of their security plans and how they plan to accommodate legal, lawful protesters. But it's hard for me to imagine how the convention there, and for that matter, the convention in Milwaukee, happens without massive disruptions and massive and potentially quite destructive protests.
Could be a long, hot summer indeed. Rick Klein from Washington. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Next on Full Circle Florida, my interview with ousted State Attorney Andrew Warren running for his old job. Will he prosecute abortion cases, and what he said about his opponent? Next.